In those days, I was in the life insurance industry and I had an appointment with somebody in town. So I lived up north. So, as I usually do, I cut things pretty fine. It was pretty cold, like today is. So, I got in my car. I knew it would probably take me about 22, 23 minutes to get to where I was going. So, I gave myself 23 minutes and off I went. And of course, what happens when you cut things fine is that you get stuck in front of traffic lights and you battle to get onto the freeway. And the offshoot of it was that I arrived at my appointment just about bang on time. And there was a queue of 3 cars at security waiting to get through, and I still hadn't parked and still hadn't got to reception. So actually, I was now running late for my meeting. And everyone before me was signing in to a book and what have you. And the guard was, he had a coat on because it was really cold. It was about 0 degrees or something. And eventually I was getting more and more agitated. And as I got to the guard, I said, "Do I really have to fill in the book?" And he says, "Yes, please, sir." So I said, "Okay, let me have it." So I took the book and I filled it in. And then I said, "Okay, where can I park? I'm in quite a hurry." So he said to me, "Let me just quickly put some people into the waiting room. And then I'll continue with my story." There we go. Some people are dropping their signal, so that's why I sometimes have to stop and let them in. Okay. So I then went and parked myself, and I went to my meeting, and I'd arrived about 6 or 7 minutes late because of the delays, and they kept me waiting for another 6 or 7 minutes, and I had my meeting. But on the way back, I started thinking about what had happened. Firstly, I could have been a bit more friendly to the guard. In fact, I was a bit brusque with him. That's the word for being a little bit short with him. It wasn't his fault. He was simply doing his job. And maybe I should change my planning a little bit so that I'm not always running bang on time. So as it so happened, I had a repeat appointment with the same company, and that was 2 weeks later. And this time I thought, well, I'm going to leave 10 minutes earlier. Luckily, it wasn't quite as cold, but it was still a cold day. So I left early. Of course, got stuck in no traffic lights, got into the freeway very easily, and arrived there about 12 minutes ahead of time. And guess what? There were no queue of cars. So I got up to the security, and guess what? Same security guard there. So now I wondered if he recognized this reasonably rude guy that had not been very friendly to him last time. So as I arrived, I said to him, "Good morning, how are you?" And he said, "Yes, I'm fine, thank you, sir." So I said, "Tell me, have they got a heater for you in your security box because it's pretty cold?" He said, "Yes, sir, but it's only 1 bar." I said, "You know what? I'm going to have a chat to the people that I'm meeting with, and let's see if we can get you something a little bit warmer because it's cold in here." He said, "Yes, sir, it is a bit cold, especially my feet." I said, "Great stuff. Do you want me to fill in the book?" And he said, "Yes, please, if you don't mind, sir." So I filled in the book and what have you, and I gave it back to him, and I said, "My friend, where can I park?" And he said to me, "Sir, how long are you going to be?" And I said, "About an hour or so." And he said, "Well, why don't you just park over here and give your keys in at reception, and then if they need to move your car, they can just move it for you." And I said, "That'll be fantastic." Now, the point really that I'm making here is that my discovery on that particular day, and I always rated myself as being pretty good at service because when I was in the financial service industry, my strength used to be to go back to existing clients and get more business. What I really learned there was a little bit of planning, a little bit of good attitude, and a little bit of just taking yourself in hand and preparing properly for your day is going to get you a long way in terms of allowing you to give the kind of service to people. And the point that I'm really making here is one of the things that we need to do if we're going to give great service is that we need to learn how to get good service. Now, the process of getting good service is the process of taking yourself and putting yourself in the shoes of the person that is delivering service to you. And as human beings, we almost have 2 different personas. And the 2 different personas are the one receiving service, so we know the kind of service that we want to receive. But then we're also a person who is on a daily basis getting service from people. And the nature of how we've been getting service has been changing over the years and particularly over the decades. but they are two different people. So we expect a certain type of service. The question we need to ask ourselves as individuals is, am I, when called upon to deliver service, am I delivering the kind of service to people that I'm expecting to receive? And if you can do that, it's got a lot to do with the way your attitude is seasoned. In other words, the kind of habits that you've got into in terms of the way that you deal with people. Okay, so the first one is, and these are the 7 communication steps. Firstly, use I messages and not you messages, particularly when there's a little bit of friction involved. So the difference there is, if you said, well, I asked you to do something and you didn't do this, instead of using the you all the time, you can say, well, I was expecting this kind of service. I would have liked it if I could have got this. Now, the moment you move it from the you, it becomes unaccusatory, and it becomes me expressing my expectations, which is far less challenging to somebody. Okay, so the next one is remain friendly and calm. And one would think that that's obvious, but the problem is that if a conflict situation starts arising, we tend to start tensing up, and with many of us, some aggression starts coming out. So if you can remain friendly and calm, no matter what the circumstances, you're likely to be getting better service, even if they're not doing it at the rate that you're expecting it. Then this is very, very important. Sometimes we don't really ask for what we want clearly. We might mumble, they can't hear us properly, or we might give a long explanation when in fact one short sentence could have done the trick. So we need to ask what we want clearly. Then the fourth one, and this is the fourth of 7. And this, in a sense, to me was a big, big eye-opener. And that is, let them mirror your behavior instead of you mirroring theirs. So if they are sour, if they are aggressive, if they are unpleasant, if they are being unfair, don't you be any one of those things. You be yourself. Be who you usually are, that nice, kind, considerate person. Keep your cool, stay calm, and the calmer you stay, the more they will start to calm down and mirror your behavior. And it's an incredibly effective technique, because someone can't get angry with you when you don't retaliate and get angry with them. And in fact, I've got a quick story I just want to share with you around that, which was quite amusing. When I was at boarding school, there was a big guy there that didn't like me. And he was Afrikaans speaking, so he always spoke to me in Afrikaans, never spoke to me in English. And the one time he was in the dormitory near me, and he took off his boots, and I was a bit cheeky, so I just said to him, Tom, jou voete stink. In other words, your feet are stinking. And that gave him the excuse that he was looking for to get up. And he came up to my bed and he said, staan op de Toit, ek wil jou moer. In other words, stand up to Toit, I want to hit you. Now, I realized that if I'd stood up, he would have beaten the hell out of me, and because he was a lot bigger than me. So my response to him was, Tom, jy kan maar moer, maar ek gaan nie opstaan nie. In other words, Tom, you can go ahead and hit me, but I'm not getting up. And in the Afrikaans culture, you can't hit a person when they're sitting down, so it defused the situation. It's quite a funny story, but it taught me a lot, and I've been able to use that story in many of my mind-blowing customer service seminars over the years. So let me give you number 5, and that is just check that you're being fair. Sometimes we don't always have the facts, or we don't understand the product as well as the person that's providing it to us, and we jump to conclusions about things. So just check that you're being fair. And then the next one, obviously put yourself in their shoes. What is it like for them? What time of day is it? How many people have they had to deal with? How many buses did that poor person have to catch to get to work? And how early did they have to get out of bed in the morning? And if you look at the person who represents that company as a human being and not just someone that works for the organization, I think it gives us a lot more compassion. And then the very last one, get the other person on your side. Because it's amazing, like that guard, Suddenly, when I was friendly to him and I showed consideration for his comfort, he gave me a premium parking spot and a smile when I left. So that's quite a good example of 7 communication steps that you can use to make sure that you get good service when you're dealing with somebody else.